Hi, folks. It's Keith Beardsley, A-Tory01, back with another edition of the A-Tory01 blog. And this is just sort of a fun one. I certainly enjoyed the comments that Mulroney made about Justin Trudeau, and probably enjoyed even more all the outrage over it and feigned indignation and so on. And because he said a couple of nice things, but there's also a lot of truth in what he said. We can dump on various prime ministers day after day after day after day. And there's all these little scandals that take place and outrage in the media. But in the end, what are they really remembered for? So if we ignore some of Brian's traditional, blarney and over the top comments, Mulroney was largely right. History judges prime ministers based on their major achievements. All the minor stuff that goes on, the BS in the House of Commons day after day after day, and the supposed scandal this, scandal that. Over time, that becomes largely forgotten. History judges prime ministers on their major achievements. Now, we can all debate what Justin Trudeau's major achievements will be. It's still too early. He's still hanging around there, unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, but he's still there. Now, in my lifetime so far, I've watched 12 different prime ministers. Every single one of them had a pile of scandals and ministers resign. Matter of fact, if you go back from the Mulroney era to now, a lot of those scandals were dug up by myself when we were in opposition. That was my specialty. In those days, they were huge items. Today, looking back on those people and those prime ministers, do people remember? If I can take Diefenbaker as an example. Now, Diefenbaker was embroiled in lots of controversies. Is he remembered for, let's say, I don't know, the Gerda Munsinger scandal or the Beaumark missiles? Or is he remembered as the prime minister who brought in our Bill of Rights, who gave the vote to Indigenous peoples, who nominated the first Indigenous senator, and who put the first woman ever into cabinet? That's what he's remembered for. So, history has a way of evening all of this out. If we look at Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father, love him or hate him, what's he remembered for? What's the first clip that people show of him in the media? No, it's the October crisis. That's the thing. Standing up to separatists, standing up for Canada. That's part of his legacy. If I said to some of you, probably most of you out there, what was the salmon arms salute? How many of you remember? How many watching this video, if you're not in the media and you're not a political science person, how many remembered the term Schwinnegate? That's part of Jean Chrétien's legacy. But is that the first thing that comes to mind in the history books? Definitely not. So Mulroney wasn't all that wrong. Let me just remind you too, history has a way of forgetting some people. Who came second in all those elections? Does anyone care? How many of you can take the last, let's say, half dozen even prime ministers and list all the different opposition leaders? Now, opposition leaders tend to disappear. They become a footnote in history. And that's something that the modern day Conservative Party has to remember. We can criticize that prime minister all we want, but in the end, you have to win. The population doesn't remember who came second, third, fourth, fifth in some years when we had 5 parties. Something to think about. So yes, Mulroney was not wrong. Keith Beardsley, A-Tory01, wishing you a great day.